Center of Pakistan and International Relations hosted an international conference virtually, titled The Evolving Middle East and Geopolitical Realignments. Awais Sadiq commenced the session by extending the gratitude to all the speakers on behalf of the Center of Pakistan and International Relations. The session started with the recitation of Holy Quran. COPAIR is a strategic think tank, building a positive narrative at the national and international levels, and it is dedicated to the study of defense and security, regional and global affairs, and seeks to promote an in-depth analysis of national and international affairs. The moderator of the 3-hour-long session was Mr. Khalid Latif, who is an advisor of Center of Pakistan and International Relations on International Affairs.
Today I am very grateful for a distinguished list of speakers who have graciously accepted to participate and address the topic, the evolving Middle East and geopolitical realignments. Making use of Alvin Toffler's book titled The Third Wave, it is pertinent to keep in mind that the first wave of the Middle East geopolitics was triggered a century ago with the defeat of the Ottoman Empire. The second wave of Middle East geopolitics followed World War II, when the European colonial order disintegrated and the Middle East found itself within the Cold War context. A third wave of geopolitics has been making its way into the Middle East political geography since the end of the Cold War, with the current quote-unquote withdrawal of the American order, which for about 20 years was the uncontested and dominant external power. Thus, the contemporary Middle East is the product of these three geopolitical waves, which has witnessed 5 Arab-Israeli wars, 3 Israeli-Lebanese wars, the 3 Gulf Wars, 8 Arab revolutions, 2 low-intensity and 3 high-intensity ongoing civil wars.
Muin Rabbani, who is a co-editor of Jade Aliyah and expert on Palestinian affairs, the Arab-Israeli conflict and contemporary Middle East, talked about geopolitical overdrive, the United States and Arab-Israeli relations.
Thank you very much, Khalid, and thank you very much for the Center for inviting me to participate in this webinar. What I would like to do is to briefly sketch what I believe to be the current US strategy, its context, and its implications. I think it's important to start with the observation that while we often hear that the United States is disengaging from the Middle East and pivoting towards Asia, something that we began to hear increasingly during the Obama years and has become even more pronounced during the Trump administration with all kinds of reports about withdrawal from the Middle East, I don't think is a very accurate reflection of reality. We may, as Mr. Khan said, no longer live in a unipolar world, but that by no means implies that the US is withdrawing from the Middle East. Many people have, for example, pointed to the fracking revolution, the shale revolution in the United States.
Andreas Krieg, who is a lecturer of the School of Security Studies at King's College London, briefly discussed about authoritarianism and liberalization, the ideational divide of the Middle East post-Arab Spring. His work comprises of security provision and socio-politics in the Arab world after the 21st century uprising in Arab world.
What I was going to talk about today is based on something that I've observed over the last decade or so evolving in the Middle East, where we mostly look at the Middle East through the lens of international relations and geostrategic interests. I'm trying to look at it more through the lens of ideational synergies, values, and narratives, because I think that's where the most important divides are at the moment, as the way I see it. And it kind of ties into what Muin said before in many respects. So, you know, there are different layers and divides within the Middle East, and not all of them are based on geostrategic interests and effectiveness.
Anu Anwar's topic of speech was China's evolving role in the Middle Eastern geopolitics. He talked about Beijing's increasing engagement in the Middle East and provided with his critical analysis of China's comprehensive strategy in the MENA region, especially concerning the successful realization of the New Silk Road.
I noticed that my previous two speakers highlighted the ground reality in Middle Eastern Geopolitical Calculation Forum and how those Middle Eastern countries in positioning themselves in this growing global great power competition. But in my part, I will try to highlight that the China's evolving role in Middle Eastern geopolitics, and to some extent how that also relate to the South Asian geopolitical calculation as well. So even though Middle East has always been one of the critical sub-region in global geopolitical calculation, primarily because of the strategic position of Middle East, vast reserve of natural resource and rich history, but clearly it come into the center of global geopolitical calculation after 9/11. But China has always not been one of the major player in Middle Eastern politics. But in fact, if we had this webinar, let's say after 9/11 in 2001, we might not talk about China as a major player in that region.
Leonid Salvin, a geopolitical analyst from Russia and chief editor of Geopolitica.ru, and the founder and chief editor of Journal of Eurasian Affairs, highlighted the official Russian agenda and emergence of multipolar world order.
Good evening, colleagues. First of all, I think when we start to discuss Russian policy anywhere, we should mention one thing. There is framework for official diplomacy, which is represented by strategies and negotiation processes with various players. But at the same time, we see the action of realpolitik, and no one can provide a clear forecast, even within the expert community inside Russia. The fact is that the decision-making process here is a rather specific procedure. It's different than in European countries, in Pakistan, in United States. The analysis and recommendations on events and specific countries in the Middle East traditionally prepared at high level.
Michael Kugelman is the Deputy Director of the Asia Program and Senior Associate on the South Asia at the Wilson Center. He shared his views on shifting dynamics in the Middle East and the role of the U.S. and implications for Pakistan and South Asia.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you to COPAIR for organizing this very interesting interdisciplinary cross-geographic event. I really have learned a lot. So I guess at this point, the advantage of being the final speaker is that all of the key things that have been said have been said. But I'll try to fill in some gaps and perhaps highlight some key points that were made by others in my own comments. Yeah, there's been so much geopolitical churn in the Middle East in recent months, and there's so much that one can talk about in this context. But what I thought I would do is highlight what I regard to be perhaps or maybe the two biggest Big Bang events for a region, for a Middle East region that's had a lot of Big Bang events of late, certainly over the course of this year. One of them would be the U.S. government's decision to kill Qasem Soleimani, and the other is the very recent agreement between Israel and the UAE. And so I'll address these two issues from two perspectives that I would like to think I understand the most. One is the thinking here in Washington behind these two moves, and the other is the implications of these two moves for South Asia, including Pakistan. So let's start with the Soleimani killing. The Trump administration has been on a collision course with Iran throughout its time in power. Trump has shown a willingness to be unconventional, to say the least, and to change course with long-standing rivals by pursuing conciliatory paths. So North Korea stands out here for sure.
Ms. Amna Malik, the president of COPAIR, delivered her closing remarks and extended her vote of thanks to the distinguished speakers and highlighted the distinct views shared by the panelists of the session. She also shed light on the new economic world order and role of Muslim countries in Middle East region, along with the significance of Pakistan's geostrategic positioning, which renders the country as the gateway of Middle East and connecting the MENA region with Asian economies.
Thank you very much. This is something which is very important. Today's topic is something which we really want to work on it. And this is the series of activities which we are doing it. We are having research publication, especially providing the guidelines to the Foreign Office that what should Pakistan do in the current evolving Middle East situation. And we are also seeing the new alliances and alignments. My question is to all of you that what strategy and what are the recommendations for the Pakistan policymakers? Because, you know, this is a tough choice because we are having the evolving alliances and we are expecting new cooperations. And when there is a new economic world order, so how Pakistan act upon, because we always act as a neutral state, a Muslim state, which always try to play its a conciliatory role and always try to be a brother to its other Muslim states. But now as we see that China, Russia, or China, or Turkey, Qatar, or India, US alliances we are seeing in the region. So South Asia and Pakistan is the gateway to all from east to west. So how Pakistan plays its role, and being a nuclear power, and to be one of the important power having a population and having economic resources, and how it can connect to the world, and what are the choices in this evolving Middle East situation, and what are your suggestions?
COPAIR convenes local and international leaders and experts on different subjects to find solutions for the region.